Still on. I want to take that off. Here. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Laws and Customs of Purim with Rabbi Chernitsky, director of the Chabad Center for Jewish Life. All right. So we had learned last time on Thursday. We studied together the laws about reading Megillah, about sending gifts of food and gifts to the poor. Now we have to deal with the fourth mitzvah. Remember, there's four special commandments, mitzvot on Purim. Each one begins with the letter Mem in Hebrew, which is so it's easy to remember. Megillah, Mishloach Manos, Matanos Levyonim Mishte, reading Megillah, sending gifts of food, two types of food, or food and a drink, to at least one person. Then Matanos Levyonim, money to two different poor people. And the fourth one we're going to speak about now is mishte, having a meal. So we need to eat and drink a bit merry on Purim. And the main seuda, the main meal, should be by day. As it says in the Megillah, Yemei mishte, the days of feasting. Though we said before, if you remember, that Purim night, after the Megillah reading, also the table should be set, there should be candles lit, should be somewhat festive, but the main meal is by day. This is the mitzvah. And it's Pradhan should light candles to express the joy of the day meal. And the joy of Purim is greater than the joy of a Yom Tov of other holidays. Therefore, it's customary to daven the mincha, the afternoon prayer, earlier on, and then have the meal earlier in the day. In other words, in the early afternoon. And at the very least, the majority of the meal should take place by day. So don't just start it at night and then continue into the night, but rather the night going out of Purim, but start on Purim day, and so on. Everybody should be gathered, you, your friends, your family, because it's impossible to rejoice properly when you're alone. And the rejoicing should be by words of Torah. So words of Torah should be shared at this Purim meal. If you need the inspiration, go to chabad.org, chabad.org, and find lots of good stuff. Do you need to eat bread at this meal? Do you need to eat meat? Well, this is a subject of discussion in the halachic authorities. The custom is that we do eat bread and ideally also meat. When Purim falls out on, okay, we're going to skip that. That's when Purim falls out on Friday. Not the case this year, which Purim falls out Monday night, next Monday, March 6th, until Tuesday, March 7th. It's good to study some Torah before the beginning of the meal. And the support for this idea is that Megillah says, the Jews had light and happiness. And the sages tell us on this verse that when it says light, it refers to the Torah. And that's mentioned the verse before, Simcha, joy, referring to the meal. So you see that you study some Torah before sitting down for the meal. So it's a well-known idea that a person should drink on Purim until he doesn't know the difference between Odor Haman and Baruch Mordechai, curses Haman and places Mordechai, or at the very least drink a little bit more wine than you used to remember the great miracle that happened, and then the person will fall asleep, and when he's asleep, he cannot tell the difference. And all the commentaries, all I knew, are quick to point out that the concept of drinking is only for a person who will not neglect any mitzvah, any commandment by drinking, and of course will not embarrass himself or others, or break things or hurt other people. So if you don't fit into the category, then you should not be drinking. Now, you started the meal by day, the meal extends into the night. Do you have to mention the Al Hanisim addition, which is for Purim, in the Birkas Hamazon, in the benching? So it depends. If you didn't pray the evening prayers yet, then you do. But if you already pray the evening prayers, you cannot mention anymore the Al Hanisim because it would be contradictory. Evening prayers means it's already night, it's already the next day in the Hebrew calendar. And then when you go to bench to say the grace after the meals, if you would say Ve'al Hanisim, you're saying it's the day before. It's still Purim. Contradiction. Can't have contradiction. So as long as you didn't pray the evening prayers, you could still mention Ve'al Hanisim. If you've already done the evening prayers, you cannot say Ve'al Hanisim in the benching. You should be careful not to forget to daven the Ma'ariv, the evening prayers after Purim. Though it's common to forget or possible to forget since the meal extends hours into the night. And the story is told about the Ramah, Moshe Isherlis, who was famous for composing the notes on the Code of Jewish Law, known as the Mappa, tablecloth. Right, the Code of Jewish Law is called the Shulchan Aruch, the set table. So at the time, he was running his own code, and when this one came out, he wrote in his own words the Mappa, just the tablecloth, just noting the Ashkenazi custom where it differed from the Sephardi custom written by the author, the Beit Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo. Okay, so the story is told about him, the Ramah, that Purim night he would be dressed like a regular person, not like the chief rabbi of Krakow as he was, and he would knock on people's doors, reminding them to pray the evening prayers. It's proper to have a big gathering on Purim, since the Megillah says, Kenois Kol Yehudim. It's part of the story. Esther tells Mordechai, you should gather all of the Jews, men, women, and children, and this gathering should bring out brotherly love and to encourage each other to take upon ourselves resolutions in the observance of Torah and mitzvahs, Judaism. Okay, also Purim falling on Friday, we'll skip that. Now we'll move on to the next section about doing work and getting married on Purim. So, work here doesn't mean like Shabbat or Yom Tov, Sabbath and the holidays, when turning on a light is a forbidden type of work. That you're allowed to do on Purim, as long as it's on Shabbat, of course, which anyways is not the case in the diaspora. Purim will never fall on Shabbat. But the type of work that we're going to speak about is something that takes effort and takes time. For example, Purim is not the day to paint your house. Purim is not the day to do woodwork. Purim ideally is a day when people don't go to work, but it's not forbidden. You should try to get out of it. If not, then a person, if it can't get out of it, they could actually go to work at the office. But you're not supposed to do work on Purim, and the Talmud says if you do any work, you will not see a blessing, you will not get any profit from it. For the sake of Purim, you're allowed to do any activity, and somebody has nothing to eat, or if there's a loss involved, he is allowed to do any type of actual work because this will bring him joy. Business, you're allowed to do on Purim because that will bring you joy as well. Also, you're allowed to write a letter greeting someone. I don't know who writes letters anymore today, but you could write a letter. You could write down your debts and anything else that doesn't need a lot of concentration. And certainly you could write anything related to a mitzvah. We do not make weddings on Purim. Why? Because we do not mix one joy with the other, which is why also the intermediary days of a holiday, like the intermediary days of Passover or the intermediary days of Sukkot, we don't hold weddings. Why? Because that would mar, right, one joy with the joy of the other. You cannot celebrate two things at once. Judaism is about being deliberate and living in the moment. If you're happy about this, you can be happy about that at the same time. Okay, we're finishing the loss of Purim now. And here we have the loss of mourning on Purim, referring to a mourner, etc. A mourner during the 70th of mourning, and they fall on Purim, right? Purim's in the middle of his days of the 7 days. He has to keep all the laws, and he cannot see any type of joy, even though it's Purim. But he's allowed to wear leather shoes and sit in a regular chair, even on Shushan Purim. Why? Because these are things that everybody could see, and we're going to explain how that works. Because usually a mourner stays at home, but here we're speaking about a mourner that he's going to the synagogue. So let's see about leaving his house at night. If he could gather a minyan at home to read the Megillah in his house, it's better, and he should not leave the house. Can't gather a minyan at home, then he should daven and should pray the evening prayers in his house, and go to the shul, to the synagogue to hear the Megillah. And what if Purim falls out after Shabbat? He should go to the shul after the third meal of Shabbat. After the third meal of Shabbat, and then stay there for the evening prayers once Shabbat ends. But Purim day, he's allowed to go to the shul regularly like everyone else. So that's what we say he could wear the leather shoes and sit in a regular height seat. If the mourner is the one reading the Megillah, someone else should say the blessings, because the mourner cannot say the blessing of Shechianu in public, and therefore he cannot do the obligation of others in public with the blessing of Shechianu, one of the blessings that we say, the third one. But the mourner could read the Megillah. Mourner during Shiva, during the 7 days of mourning, has an obligation to do the mitzvah of sending the poor and gifts of food to a friend, but he should not send something that causes joy. Now, what about sending to the mourner? Can we send to the mourner? So within 30 days, the shloshim, we don't send him gifts of food. After the shloshim, after 30 days, we are lenient to send him something that doesn't cause joy. If the person is poor, you're allowed to send the poor mourner money or anything else that doesn't cause him joy. And if there's a situation that in that town or city the only two Jews are the mourner and somebody else, then they're allowed to send gifts of food to each other so they can both do the mitzvah, even though in a regular situation that would not be allowed. A person who lost a close relative on the fast of Esther, the day before Purim, and at night he is what Halakha calls an oinen, also another stage of mourning before burial. So this person who's an oinen should hear the reading of the Megillah from somebody else. He himself should not read it, and he should not eat meat and drink wine. Why? Because at night there's no obligation of having a meal. There's a custom to have a meal. But by day, after people leave the synagogue, after morning prayers, we do the burial. And then the person who's the oinen prays the morning prayers after the burial and reads the Megillah or hears it from somebody else. Now, if you heard the Megillah before the burial, he did the mitzvah. Nevertheless, it's proper that you read it again or hear it again without blessings. You should not put tefillin until after the burial, since this is the first day of mourning. But if he's an oinen, if a close relative passed away, wasn't buried yet, and this is Purim by day, he is allowed to eat meat and drink wine. Then we have Shushan Purim, which is the day after Purim for us, on the Tesvav, the 15th of Adar. So the 15th of Adar we call it Shushan Purim. We don't say Tachanun, the penitential prayers. And we're not allowed to deliver eulogies or fast. And some also have a custom to eat something special, be extra happy, but we don't say the Ve'al Hanisim edition that we said on Purim. Hope you enjoyed this 3-lesson series on the laws and customs of Purim. Comments, questions, concerns, drop a comment here. There you go, here. Or send us an email, rabbi.newfoundland@gmail.com. Have a happy Purim, a Fredechem Purim, Chag Sameach. I will see you next time.